Back with another video, everyone. Let's take a look at Integration Paper Assignment 2 in Module 9. I want to start conceptually by kind of thinking about how to even engage the concept of media. British cultural theorist Stuart Hall suggests that the way that we read media is not very random at all. It's a pattern reading, and what we see, the images, and the representations could all be connected back to social policy, could be connected to other social institutions. And so I want to take a look at two major images that are created in the early 1900s. The Mammy image, right here, and the greaser image, the stereotype of Latino men. And so, what I'm asking you to do is really kind of think about how the images are portrayed in media and why. Are they portrayed this way because of a policy or a set of policies that preceded them? Are they portrayed this way to, in some cases, develop policy? And so, if we look at the mammy stereotype, you'll be able to see that the representations of the mammy and other caricatures of the African American experience are promoting this return to slavery or the defense of slavery. And so a lot of what media representations are doing in the early 1900s are promoting this idea that slavery was good, right? Or paternalistic for the black community. And this is in direct response to a lot of the policies that are happening during Reconstruction, very much including the separate but equal doctrine set forth by Plessy versus Ferguson in the late 1800s. For the greaser stereotype, I think we also have a very interesting situation. In the early 1900s, Latinos were considered white by Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. There was a lot of anti Mexican sentiment as a direct result of things like the Mexican American War and now migration northward from Latin America. And so the greaser stereotype is a stereotype that's developed in some ways to actually promote policy. You'll see that the greaser stereotype is something that defines Latinos and particularly Latino men as people who are dangerous, that are a threat to white women, and as a result, are the precursors to things like the Border Patrol and the wall that's being built, right, in the United States. And so, what I want you to do is I want you to think about the concept of gender in thinking about these two images, right? So, gender is a little bit different than sex, at least for this particular assignment. We're thinking about representations in masculinity and representations in femininity. So, we're not just thinking about how men are seen and women are seen, but if a person is identified as a man or a woman, right, are they seen as normally masculine, excessively masculine, or maybe emasculated? In the same vein, if we take a look at the way that women are they represented with a very normal femininity, or are they given masculine features, or are they given hyper feminized features? And all these kind of work to help us understand the ways that race is being made and changed in the early 1900s. So, what I'd like to do is instead of looking at the mammy and the greaser, which you can look at in the modules, let's take a look at another image and we can kind of like dissect that image together in this video. So let me go back to the modules here, and I'm going to scroll down to Module 9 one more time, and you are responsible for doing the Bronco Billy image, and you're responsible for doing the ethnic notions images where you'll see the mammy. And so for us, let's kind of take a look at maybe a film about Native American people in Module 9.4. So let's go ahead and click on this really quick. And so here I'm prompting you to start right around minute 14. And so I want you to go ahead and hit play. Let's go to about minute 14 here, right? And so while you're watching the film, I want you to kind of pay attention to the ways that Native American people are represented in opposition to, right, white settling families here. So check this out for just a second. And so here you can see kind of the making of difference. It's a silent film, so a lot of the ways that people have to portray racial difference is the way they dress, the way they walk, right? And a lot of the makeup, right, that is very specific to either color or symbolism that would reflect, right, a racial group's stereotypes. So here, I'm gonna put pause. The representation of the settlers here are representations in gender. And so you can kind of see here, if I click play, that we have, right, babies, we have caring families, and we have, right, both men and women represented. You're not going to quite see this image when Native Americans come into the picture. And so when we're trying to offer a gender or a sexual kind of analysis here, you can kind of see here that the white families are represented as normal, right? They value family, right? There's men, there's women, and there's children. You're often not going to see that in representations of people of color. You're going to see them represented in some ways as either hypersexualized or desexualized or hyper-aggressive, right? Hypermasculine or emasculated. And so when you're looking at these films, kind of think about how the ways that people are represented in their gender play a really, really strong role in the way that people read the image. I'm going to hit pause really quickly here because the second part of your essay, and let me go ahead and click back to the modules and move down to your organizing worksheet. So when you're thinking about writing about these images, the first part you're looking at is, right, the description, right? How are they represented in their gender, in their race, as different from, right, the main characters, the heroes, the good guys, etc. And so if we looked at that Native American representation, we'll be able to see as you kind of move through the film, a representation of savagery as a threat to kind of like the normal white family and right as aggressive, masculine, hyper masculine, right? And these are all ways that this group of people is being racialized in media. And so the next part is to really think about how these representations aren't random, that filmmakers aren't just kind of coming out with, right, these representations just based on creativity. A lot of these representations are directly informed by a lot of the policies, the labor, the event, right, that preceded them. So if you thought about kind of like the Native American experience, you can kind of see that the policies of land removal, the policies of, right, non-citizenship, these are all things that help kind of shape the ways that people are reading Native American images. And so I want you to do the same thing with the Mammy and the Greaser images. The first thing I want you to do is just kind of write down exactly how they're represented. So we call that encoding, right? How does a filmmaker kind of create an image so that the reader knows how to read the image correctly? They make use of stereotypes, they make use of, right, the information that's already in the person's head. And in the early 1900s, much of this information that's in a person's head is being informed by the current policies or, right, the policies that preceded the event. And so for the greaser, same thing. But for the greaser, I want you to kind of think about how the image itself actually helps promote new policies on moving Mexican American people from whiteness into right people of color. So by 1930, we'll actually see Mexican people on the census as uniquely different than white people. And so for the Mammy, you're going to talk a little bit about how the description of the Mammy is really based on a lot of the policies during Reconstruction. Name things like Plessy versus Ferguson, right, as maybe an ideological map that helps link a policy to that image. For the greaser, we're arguing that media is a social institution that can actually promote things, right, like laws. And so the media representations of the greaser will help shape things like the development of the Border Patrol, which we see happen in 1924. And so this is a tough assignment. It's a different way of thinking. So really do your best here to really just make sure that you're writing down the descriptions and do your best to really try to think about why that description is related to or helps promote a new policy or new form of legislation. All right. Good luck, everyone. And I'll see you in the submission box.